and welcome to our Immigration and Business Insights for Foreign Business Leaders, What to Expect in 2025, hosted by the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce, BCCC, in partnership with Canada Starthub and SMB Legal Advisors. I'm Raquel Boechat. I'm the co-chair of the BCCC IST Committee and CEO and founder of Canada Starthub. The BCCC is a coast-to-coast independent, non-profit Canadian organization that has promoted business relations between Brazil and Canada for over 50 years by creating and maintaining high-level networking in our sectorial committees and events. First of all, I want to thank our annual sponsors, Vale, Melahoc Logistics, Proativa Results, BMA Law, and Brookfield, as well as our members and partners for their continued support. We would like also to acknowledge that this land, Ontario, where we are, is part of the treaty lands of the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, territory of the Anishinaabeg, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Oshawa Chippewa peoples, home of the Métis, and most recently, the territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on this land. At BCCC, we also recognize the importance to stand as leaders, embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion. We recognize that DEI is not just the right thing to do, but essential for our organization's success. We lead the change, understanding that diversity and inclusion practices must permeate all aspects of our businesses. By weaving DEI into the fabric of our organizations, we cultivate an environment where every individual thrives and feels a sense of belonging, innovation flourishes, and collective potential is realized. Let us forge ahead, united in our mission to create a diverse and inclusive future that transcends boundaries and elevates us all. Finally, I'm honored to lead this webinar series with Sonia Mirbaha, advisor at SMB Legal Advisors, and receive today Paola Saad, chair of the BCC Trade and Investment Committee and founder and president of Mandala Group. Paola, thank you very much for joining us today, and we are very happy that you accepted our invitation to be our first guest. We are really honored to have you here. And thank you, Sonia, for really creating this opportunity, thinking together how we could help and support more foreign entrepreneurs to expand and understand the challenges of coming to Canada and the opportunities that we can have here. So before I start with the questions with Paola, I'm sure everyone in the audience is super curious. And can you give us an update? What are the main changes that are happening regarding the immigrations for startups and business in Canada?
Thanks, Raquel. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for BCCC for all the support. Thanks for amazing Paola for being our guest speaker today. And thank you for all the audience to put some time, carve out some time aside and listen to our conversations. Before I start, I'm going to start with my disclaimer. As you know, as a legal professional, I always have to put my disclaimer as the first thing. The information that I pass down in this webinar is solely for the purposes of this BCCC event and should be construed as a legal advice or any sort of that nature. So if anybody has any specific questions, individuals or corporations, about specific cases, I would be more than happy to connect after the event to talk about and provide my professional advice. But anything that's passed on in this section for 1 hour is only for information purposes. Changes impacting entrepreneurs. I mean, majority of the people, as you know, and a majority of people that are hearing us today, they all know about the roller coaster of policies that came into effect in immigration starting in 2024. Without going into much details, and before I actually, focus on entrepreneurs, I have to let everybody know that this is the series that we kind of designed with Raquel to talk about different immigration, aspects, business aspects. So it's sort of like evolving topics for us. We're going to have more events in 2025. The first one we chose to, Raquel and I mutually chose to focus on entrepreneurs because, BCCC deals with a lot of foreign entrepreneurs that are either, doing business outside of Canada or are planning to bring their businesses to Canada. So we tried to be focused on those people as the first segment of our event. But, your questions, your comments will sort of give us more focus as to what are going to be the next topics for the next events. So don't be shy, post your questions, send us emails. Our email addresses will be posted in the chat group as well. And so, we can sort of understand where the interest is, and based on that, we can design our next topics for the events. Okay, I talked a lot. Going back to entrepreneurs, there were a lot of reduction in numbers of, permanent residents and temporary residents in 2025 and 2026. So Canada is going to be accepting less, as everybody knows. Specifically, there's going to be 50% reduction in PNP programs, and those are provincial nominee programs designed by provinces. The reason that I'm bringing that up is that majority of the entrepreneurial streams fall under PNP programs. The federal government doesn't have much for entrepreneurs except Startup Visa program, which we'll get into a little later. So there is already a reduction in the number of people accepted by the programs, and there are some provinces like Ontario that has put a stop on accepting entrepreneurs under their streams. This is nothing disappointing by any means. This is, again, a piece of information. There are whole other provinces in Ontario that are still accepting entrepreneurs. They're still running their streams. So it's up to the entrepreneurs really who are planning to obviously expand into Canada to figure out which province is the better match for them. When we're talking about entrepreneurial streams under PNP, we're talking about the amount of asset that entrepreneurs have, the amount of investments that they're bringing into the province, and obviously the nature of their company and business. So there are a whole bunch of, like I said, other provinces, Alberta, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and more of the rural provinces that are having the programs. We'll have to look into what is the situation for the entrepreneur and then select the proper program based on that. There has been a huge increase in emphasis on French-speaking programs, both on the provincial and federal level. So I would say a huge bonus goes to whoever that's speaking French in more of a conversational level, and obviously the tests will have to be done to prove that. But both on I would say all the provinces and the federal level have designed programs to accept more French-speaking applicants. The express entry, which was, historically, traditionally, one of the programs that many professionals would apply through them, including entrepreneurs, the scores rise up quite significantly since last year. So far, there has been, I was just looking at RCC's website to get all the updates this morning. There has been 5 rounds of draws so far in 2025. And the last draw happened on February 5th with the lowest CR score of 521. That's pretty significant. That's pretty high. It may be too early to see a pattern, for 2025, but the selection process is quite similar to what happened in the last quarter of 2024. So I think it's not going to be a huge drop in CRS score, unfortunately, in 2025. It may get dropped a little bit, and don't quote me on that. it's yet to be seen because of the requirement of the, what do you call it, the LMI, eliminating the LMIA points from the express entries. So when you take out that job confirmation or job requirement, then the CRS score might, organically drop a little bit. But the LMIA elimination has not been implemented yet, so therefore the effect has not been seen on express entry yet. We're just saying that we may go in that direction. In terms of, I understand a lot of entrepreneurs, they get their work permits prior to get their permanent residency just to come to Canada earlier and test the waters in Canada. There has been some changes and impacts on the work permit as well, especially for those streams such as intercompany transfer, ICT streams, and the LMIA-based streams. For the ICT streams, the new requirement requires the company to be established and active in 2 other countries other than Canada prior to sending or filing an application for Canada. It used to be the case that for many years, and ICT has always been the bread and butter of immigration. It used to be the case of the relationship between the subsidiary and the parent company and the subsidiary in Canada. So both companies, 2 companies should have been involved, but right now with the new policy, there are actually 4 companies that requires to be involved. Important notes, one caveat is that, the FTAs, the free trade agreements, so we've got ICT stream under FTAs as well. So the countries that are qualified for free trade agreements, such as US and such as many other countries, the ICT programs, applications under those programs are exempted from this requirement. So that's something for applicants to consider. And then again, we'll go into the details of every situation because each situation is different. LMIAs, there has been a significant restriction on low-wage LMIA. I don't expect that to be impacting entrepreneurs as much. High-wage LMIA usually might be something that entrepreneurs explore. For high-wage LMIAs, there has been 20% wage increase per province. Again, caveat is that is not per NOC code or per occupation, it's per province. So depending on which province they're coming to work, there has been 20% increase in wage since late last year. That is it in a nutshell. But I mean, I tried to round it up as much as I could, but I mean, I'm more than happy to get the questions and explain more if needed.
Thank you, Sonia. And it's exactly like you said, each case is very specific. Sometimes
Yeah.
the company have ways to bring their directors of LMIA, or they bring collaborating with other companies here. They first explore doing missions, events. There are so many ways to start this process.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of things that you have to cover. It's a big challenge.
Yes. I know. I mean,
Just
immigration is always fun to challenge.
Yeah, and just to ask you specifically about startups, because we have in our ecosystem in Brazil and in Canada a huge innovation ecosystem that works together in collaboration. And the startup visa has been the diamond in the last 5 years, thinking about innovative entrepreneurs that wanted to expand their business to Canada. How is this going now, and what changes you faced? And are they still available, the innovative
They
programs for
are. Yeah,
businesses?
they are still available, but I mean, I suspect that the numbers of applications gets boiled down quite significantly because of the long processing time. Again, in the morning, I was trying to update all my information with IRCC. The current processing time on startup visa applications is 40 months. That's like more than 3 years, and it's kind of ridiculous for a startup ecosystem. If somebody is in the startup space, everything moves super fast, and just such an archaic processing time and such a lengthy processing time, it just I don't think it makes any sense for any company that's trying to come through this process. One thing is the process, long processing times. The second thing is the restriction that was introduced in 2024 for SUVs, and that's putting the cap on the number of the letters of acceptance, letters of approval that the designated organizations are giving out to SUV applicants. The cap has been put in 10, whereas it used to be unlimited number of, acceptances. What that means is that every designated organization can only issue up to 10 letters of approval per year. And if any application goes beyond that, IRCC just simply stops processing the application and ignores the application. So that's a bit of a restriction there. Another restriction, like I said, on the long processing times comes into play. So I don't know, to be honest. It's a very interesting phase to see how the startup program going to evolve in the next year or two. Added to that is the political situation that we're going through right now. As probably majority of our audience knows, not necessarily the ones from Brazil, but the ones that are joining us from Canada. Our Prime Minister stepped down, and the new cabinet will come into play, and Minister Miller, Minister of Immigration, has introduced quite a bit of changes since late last year, and some of them are still pending, and there are no dates for them to be implemented or come into play. Now, we don't know if they ever are going to be implemented because the cabinet might change drastically, the government may change, and the conservative government have a very different view on immigration and on certainly other areas as well. So we're sort of in the limbo. It's really hard for us as immigration practitioners to forecast really what's going to happen in the next year or two. What I can talk about is the regulations as of now, right now, on February 6th. I don't know what's going to happen in February 7th, but certainly there are some caps on SUVs as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Sonia. And I've been guiding entrepreneurs that are planning to expand their business here in Canada. And what I say is that your business can come to Canada anytime, right? You can expand your business, but do partnerships, collaborate, and do research together, collaborations with partners. And even during these 3 years that you're saying, you might have a solution to come here and explore with a work permit. How is the work permit process during this time, Sonia? For example, if someone needs to come here very often to do meetings or work here, connect with clients, does the leader that is still waiting for the PR, can he come with a
yeah, of course, work permit or a business visa, in a case of people that are coming to visit only and, attend the meetings, attend, the conferences, or like collaborate with people in Canada, they can get a business visa and come to Canada. That's less hefty of a process compared to work permit, obviously. For Brazilians, we don't necessarily need a visa, as you know. They require an ETA, but as long as they have a letter that proves the intention of them coming to Canada, which means visiting the company or attending certain meetings, they can show that at the border, and then with that they'll be able to come to Canada. Obviously, with that program and with that certain way, they can't really get into the workforce in Canada, which means that they can't work, whatever we call it as a work in Canada, and they can't be paid inside Canada and can't be put under the Canadian payroll. If they require to actually work in Canada and stay in Canada for a longer period of time, they have to apply for a work permit. Now, the work permit still is going on under the SUV program. They can apply depending on which country they're coming from. The processing timelines are different. What has changed for the work permit process under the SUV is that IRCC significantly requires presence in Canada before issuing the work permit. So it used to be the case historically, again, as the applicants, they apply for permanent residency, right away apply for work permit. There's no need to show that activity is being done in Canada, maybe just the corporation that's been registered and, a few numbers and incorporation, articles of incorporation is enough. That's not the case anymore. They need to show that they've hired employees in Canada, they've signed the contracts with clients, with their networking. They're expanding the business in Canada before their work permit gets issued.
Makes a lot of sense. So I think I will pass now for Paola because this preparation is key, right, Paola? Because even us that we are entrepreneurs, if we think that the company wants to come to Canada, but she wants to build, she needs, it's a must to build the social capital network, establish the relationships, start doing some agreements, then coming with the whole family. So it's a process that makes sense, even if it's like 3 years. But if you have the right preparation, if you come here and you build a nice business, you probably will start having some profit, even though you are not living here. So my first questions for you are related to this, Paola. Based on your experience, bringing missions, supporting leaders, creating all this network in our Canadian ecosystem, what challenges do you see the entrepreneurs facing when they come, and what are your main advices?
Um, for me, when I do a trade mission, when I introduce a company to another country, I've done I don't even know how many missions, like a lot of like worldwide, like come to Canada, going to Brazil, going to other countries, anything really in and out of Brazil or Canada. And you look at three main verticals: market, regulatory, and people. So when you look at market, you're looking at who are my competitors? How is this going to be accepted in the market? What do I need? Can I source employees here? Can I source like human capital here? Can I hire the right people to lead the company in that direction that you need to go? Um, and also I think the main thing really is who am I connecting and what problem am I solving? So that's a big one. Uh, One of the best things about coming to Canada, that I find is that from here, because of all the trade agreements that we have, you can use Canada as a base and expand to the world, and it's way less bureaucratic than Brazil. It is much easier, and it's really people trust Canada, right? What's coming from Canada versus what comes from another country. Sometimes people feel safer, dealing with a Canadian company than a Latin American company or Asian company because it's North America, it's Canada, their process is here. The When you come to regulatory, you're looking at um, how do you set up the company, and what obligations do I have employees, how is the taxation system, how can I take advantage of the government programs. All those things are it's easy to talk about it. It's really hard to do. Find the right accountant, the right lawyer that from the beginning is going to set up your company and advise you in a way that you can move forward, with less hurdles, with less challenges. Finally, let's go to people. When you talk to people, not only are you talking about the cultural differences or of introducing a product in the market, the language differences, for example, Quebec, um, and how that's done. And also we're talking about how do you integrate yourself and your company into that community, into the fabric of that community. So uh, being part of like chambers of commerce, like the BCCC, being part of programs, let's say with the city of Toronto or Invest Ontario, or, something that could go the way that you need to meet the right people. And it's really important that not only you meet the right people, but not be what we call the bad boyfriend, like basically, you meet the person, oh yeah, this was great. And then you never send an email, you never follow up your email. It's a must. And one of the great things about Canada is that you call the CEO of a company, there's really barely any gatekeepers, not to say no gatekeepers. You actually get that person. So take advantage, understand the local culture, the local business culture. It really helps, the in moving forward the goal of establishing a company and having a company here. But looking at those things, trade, market, regulatory, and people, these are the three pillars that every company, one cannot exist without the other. And if it's a merchandise, you're also looking at logistics. That's the last point in that one, which is Canada is a big country. It's not, have like, not very populated. It's not the US, but it's a big country, and moving stuff around the country is very hard. So companies like, for example, we use Melahawk Logistics, which is actually one of the main sponsors of this program. They are no, they can advise you. You don't have to hire them, but you can go and shop around and get advice on how to move your merchandise around the country. What's the best distribution channels? What the best way of getting here? Is it air? Is it sea? And how to move inside the country? And being aware of how movement between provinces work as well, which is an issue that we have here in Canada. So if you look at those three verticals, and having someone that can help you navigate, because it is a lot to do, then I think they're all, like, we can call them challenges, but they're really, once you succeed, there's an opportunity to succeed and to move forward in your plans, in your dream to coming to Canada and opening a company here. And take advantages of all that Canada can bring to you.
That's true. I always say that we do still learning curve, right, Paola? If you
Yeah,
have the right connections, if you know how to navigate, you reduce time and money in the investment that you are doing. And connecting with what Sonia was saying about the time now to come and all the changes that are happening. Um, one of the one of the things that we always talk about are the missions, the niche events, and opportunities to meet in person
mhm,
leaders and influencers from the industry that you are. So can you talk a bit more about these opportunities to join missions or niche events here in Canada and the advantages of that?
sure. Let's start with the niche events. The niche events or sector events are very, very important. Where are you gonna meet, well, basic collaborators and competitors, right? You have both. And Canada has a very collaborative culture. People like to collaborate. They are very, in general, they're quite open. They like to help. They like to support you. The other thing is that you have a really global outlook here in Canada. You have people from all over the world. So if you're doing business here, if you're doing business somewhere else, you will likely meet very interesting people, and that for your business, and also getting the right information, because not only niche events when it comes to associations, but niche events that if those associations or sector specific conferences, etc., have the right sort of guests, and speakers, and attending, including someone from the government, because the government of Canada and the government of Ontario, city of Toronto, they all have tools to help new companies being established. So accessing those is very important. When it comes to trade missions, it's which be going to a different province or going out of the country. First of all, you have access to really high level dignitaries, from the Canadian government and accessing the other side. You have this credibility when you join a trade mission, the credibility of going to another country with an organized, so you're not lost, right? You have an organized mission, you have pre-book meetings, you have a local expertise to help you, and not only help you in set those meetings, but help you understand how your product sits in those new environments. You know, is it really necessary? For example, I have once like a company, a Canadian company going to Brazil. It was actually an English school from PEI. And really, like, we have so many of those here in Toronto and everywhere. So the first thing I said, I'm like, you really want to come like and pay all this money to go to Brazil, you know, when you're there's no differential. And then, you know, looking at the company and talking to them, I found a big differential, which is, you know, when for Brazilians makes a difference. Like she would everyone that goes to school and stay with host families, they're driven back and forth to school because it is PI. It's like no buses like running around. It's not so easy. And then for Brazilian companies, that's a huge, okay, I'm sending my 14-year-old to, you know, take classes, English classes for January, which is our summer. You know, you have that. And also, for example, they have specialized niche courses for pilots and flight attendants you know, for in English. A lot of the Japanese people, for example, attend those because they love Anne of Green Gables, and so they would go there to do it. So, so really talking to the company and finding what is your differential. Do going to this new market. Is your product proved? Is your product relevant? Is it worth it for you to take the trip? Because it has to be sort of win-win situation, you know, whoever's putting up the mission and whoever's attending the mission and getting that value, especially when you're talking about smaller companies where it's usually the owner, the founder, the CEO and everything that's going to go abroad. And not only the financial resources, but the time resources that you put, you know, this person will be away for a week, for example, and then the follow-ups and everything. So again, um, having that credibility and support that you have in a trade mission is makes a huge difference. And if you are going to like individual mission, you know, with the right consultant that understands your business, understands the environment where you're going into, so that person like they will have results. And again, for me, like results are very, very, very important because I am as a small as entrepreneur in a small business, I know I know exactly where they're going. So uh, so that's an excellent question, Raquel, and it's really about doing your homework and understanding the value of those connections and not being shy. So that's the big thing.
Sonia, I imagine your clients might have so many questions about this when they are preparing to come to Canada. Would you like to ask something for Paola specifically?
Yeah. So, Paula, you talked a lot about, you gave us a lot of information about how to connect, how the social network works, and all that. How did the global connections and the community building impact the business's ability to thrive in Canada? So let's say all the companies have done their homework, they've done their networking and all that. How does all of that sort of goes hand in hand to help the company thrive in Canada and be successful?
Um, so it really depends on the sector and what kind of business you have,
Yeah.
right? As I said, because Canada has so many different, Toronto, you know, and other big cities, this diversity. So if you want to do business, I don't know, in India, you know, and hiring someone that is from India and speaks the language and understands those connections, and it might even have those, it might even have those connections, or if the connections are yours, it's just having somebody in the middle to communicate, to help you understand it. Again, having someone local, right, to understand that culture, it makes a huge difference. Again, talking about global connections, using all the free trade agreements that we have in Canada to do business and, you know, and understanding those programs to your advantage. For example, if you look at EDC, they have a sort of grant for companies that are going to do meetings or trade missions abroad. I think they pay, I think it's about 50% of what it is. You have to apply for the program, the region, and everything. But those global connections, supported by what the government can help you with in leveraging those opportunities. So Canada is an excellent place for that. And it's not very bureaucratic, like there is a process, but it's not very bureaucratic. And there's some companies that actually can do that for you. So when you're looking at the community building for these people to go globally, I I think Canada is one of the best places for you to do that. So coming here, and I know, as if you're talking about the immigration process and they start visa SUV, correct? And how long it takes, and it is an investment. But I think it's an investment that's totally worth it, for you to be able to do business, sort of to and from Canada.
Okay. From specifically from the immigration standpoint, there are some in-demand occupations that IRCC have been talking about for the past couple of months, and it's becoming even more highlighted now with the number of applications that are getting from those in-demand occupations, including sectors such as healthcare, which we have a huge deficit. Trade, transport, construction, agriculture, agri-food. So is that something that, let's say, you're more focused on when you're advising your own clients? Is that something that you're sort of preaching or, helping your clients to sort of go in that direction in order to be successfully transferring their companies to Canada?
I have to be honest, this is only like part of the process, but it's really it makes it less challenging when you have, with the immigration side, it's something that you have to look into the regulations, and you have to look into the government, and what at that point in time is the best path, and having people like you really and Raquel to advise those companies in that way. In my company, really, we look more at the big picture in terms of bringing the company here rather than those sectors. But we look at those sectors as an advantage. And
Right.
sometimes we look at different provinces because different provinces will give different
Right.
advantages to particular sectors.
Right.
So that is something that we look at more in a sort of like a ease to move into to get your visa, what the province is going to give you, the city is going to give you. So we look at that in the context of of Canada in general. But it really is something that's later in the process.
Okay. Thank you.
We are almost in our time to the questions from the audience, but I want to just ask one question for both of you. Thinking about our audience that is listening to us now, and they don't know where to start. It's a lot of information, different pathways that they can go. They can collaborate with companies here, create a partnership, hire someone here, work with applied research, bring a group in a mission. There are so many opportunities. So if a company is planning to expand to Canada, facing opportunities and challenges now, what are the three advice that you would say regarding immigration purpose? How they can know if they qualify, or how can they research about it? So three pieces of advice, and Paola, three pieces of advice how they can build their social capital and start creating those connections to then come here in event or in a mission and start building this network in Canada. Let's start with Sonia about the immigration first.
I'll be quick. My three top priorities would be stay on top of the new rules, stay updated. And if you don't know, and if you can't, connect with either social media, not necessarily social media, but I mean, reliable sources such as IRCC's website or every province's website, connect to professionals, reliable professionals, and make sure that you get your updated information as of the date you're thinking about that. Because like I said, it's fluctuating. When it comes to immigration law, it's constantly fluctuating. And what is the case today is not necessarily the case in the next 10 days or 2 months. That's number one. Number two, look into what improves your situation, what improves your case. So if you, for example, if you're an individual who are trying to, or entrepreneur who are trying to come to Canada, and maybe you don't have enough asset to show that, to sort of fall under the PMP program, and you're very restricted on the SUV side, and you want to apply based on your individual situation, such as, work experience and education and whatnot, maybe you should focus on learning French language. Maybe you should, invest a little bit of a time on that to increase your scores and be more successful. What is available right now as of now, again, to improve your scores? That would be my number 2 advice. Number 3 would be, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. If you're qualified under multiple programs, and that is something that I often see in the clients, they're qualified applicants, and especially entrepreneurs that are coming from, wealth of knowledge and experience. They're often qualified under multiple programs. We've got more than 86 immigration programs in Canada. Don't put your eggs in one basket. Try to apply as much as you can to different programs, and every program has their own specifications, requirements, and timelines, and one will pan out for you for sure.
Amazing. Paola, 3 pieces of advice for the audience today, how we can start.
Well, first of all, to comment on what Sonia said, I can't believe there's 86 different programs. Like, I don't think one is aware of the plethora of programs that they can apply to, and that they actually can apply to more than one program at a time. So this is like a great piece of information. On my side, I'm going to say that, first of all, is join business associations and business groups, that they're going to have events that they can connect you with the key industry. They can connect you with, they can give you resources, you can attend events. Second, once you meet people, build a genuine connection with them. I think that's really important, like that you're just not calling them when you need them. It's just maintaining those connections and growing with the people that you have the simpatico, so that it's mostly beneficial, right? And third, and I think that comes to you, and the entrepreneurial ecosystem, in Canada is huge, right? And that is a great resource. So having companies like your Startup Hub, accelerators, co-working spaces, investors, and meeting people that it's a fellow entrepreneur. I think that's so important. And with that, I would like to ask you, Raquel, how do you see Canada's role as a global hub for the business evolving? Because, you just started a business, you did Startup Hub, correct? And how is that going? And how are your challenges in that? And how does that tie in to the entrepreneurs coming into Canada as well from Brazil?
Thank you. Thank you for asking, Paola. I was listening to you and I was remembering the first time I came to Canada was with a mission. And in this mission, we did a lot of visits and agenda, and one of them was with you. Was with you and Satish from the TMU. He was a entrepreneur in residence, and we had like a training, we had a conversation about BCCC, and that was very valuable for the group. And one thing that, going to your question, is the view Canada has about the global ecosystem, right? So even if the company has a better fit to Europe or to Asia or to other places, want to go to Africa, being a Canadian company and opening doors for 15 trade agreements with more than 50 countries, you open doors for like 1.5 billion customers overseas. So what I was like very impressed when I came here first time, besides the multicultural environment that is like incredibly fascinating, is that we are opening doors to like 50 countries everywhere. And sometimes even the company that has a better fit in another market, being a Canadian company, creating this collaboration here and then expanding to the other region that they want, is very, very positive, especially thinking about the reputation, thinking about collaboration with the trade commissioners. There are incredible, efficient leaders in the trade commissioner ecosystem in different countries that Canada has. And they support building the connections, introducing leaders, introducing companies. So imagine for a startup that is coming here and creating this big global hub where they have assistance in funding and grants. They can work in research and development and receive back this money because the Canadian government wants us to innovate here. And then after that, there are a lot of incentives to expand and export, even like financial incentives to export, like can export in different programs where you really open doors for a global hub. That's why I think Canada, even if you're not thinking to move to Canada, having your corporation here, hiring local talent, and coming here as a leader of the company to build your ecosystem and then opening doors to other markets, it's a huge opportunity. So in my case, when I advise companies with Canada Starthub, our goal is really to build the social capital and the ecosystem, sometimes in Canada or building Canada to go global. It's business incubators that are here in Canada. Some of them have chapters in other countries. So the MZ, for example, that I did process there as alumni now, has a site in New York, has a site in the Emirates. So you can
I went to their I
all
went to
the
their
places.
Mumbai office too. It was interesting. I went to their Mumbai office and in the DMZ Mumbai office, and
Exactly,
uh,
exactly.
and
So you
they
can, even though you are connecting with Canadian organizations, you can from there scale your business to other countries.
yeah, it's very very important, and I loved how you gave. Really, these are all good strategies for companies to um, they establish and grow in and from Canada to go that way. I think, and I think that's um, it's always a plus. So as I said, the process is, Sonia mentions a huge process, but I think it's very like it's worth it. And again, it doesn't have to be in Ontario. Other provinces might have an easier process, and you need experts like Sonia to be able to tell you, okay, so maybe this is the way to go, and having that expertise and having that local talent. So in terms of the trade commissioner services, they are amazing and they will help you, but they don't the one thing that they will help in general, but they can't hold your hand through the whole process. They will give you the pathway, and then there's what I'm saying, having a local expertise, the best, like you, Raquel, to you know take that person, okay, this is the open door, and you go from there. I've done, I know, dozens of trade missions hired by the government of Canada and different provinces in different countries, and so they use the expertise of local knowledge like us to do that as well, right? But what they can give you, and it's invaluable, is that first opening, that option to start. And sometimes the company does not have the capital to really hire someone like a consultant and they don't even know who to hire to help them in establishing the country. And foreign affairs is definitely, the trade commissions are definitely a great resource to get your feet wet, and then you can run.
Amazing. Sonia, thank you very much, Paula. Very great. So many insights listening to both of you. Really good. We have 3 questions from audience here, Sonia, and they are the 3 of them for you. So immigration is booming here.
I know. Why did I told you before this, I'm going to run away at some point from where I'm not. Okay, I'll go through the questions.
To include 2 of them together, I think it can help. So Andrea is asking, Andrea Moura is asking if a foreign company startup tries to get the support for a designated organization for a startup visa, but they don't get at the moment, what are the other options that they can start building or obtain the work permit for entrepreneurs to come here in Canada other than PMPs?
Yeah. Okay, so really the main pathways for entrepreneurs are PMPs right now and startup visas. So if anybody doesn't want to go through those pathways for certain reasons, the only work permit that's available is the ICT work permit for managerial roles under the intra-company transferring, meaning that this individual is carrying a company, a parent company outside of Canada, and is trying to establish a subsidiary company in Canada. And as a manager and director of the company, he wants to obtain a work permit to come, and, be on the ground and run the company. Now, with the ICTs, I briefly touched upon the changes that has came into effect. Right now, the ICTs, if it's not under the free trade agreement, meaning that if the parent company is not in one of the countries that has a free trade agreement with Canada, the company has to show at least 2 other established corporations in 2 other countries outside of Canada before filing the application in Canada. So it's becoming a bit more complicated, but if we have to look into the situation. I'm not sure which country Andre is from or where the activities of the business is happening right now. I'd be more than happy to connect outside of the webinar and get into the details of it. But just to cut it short, the short answer is yes, work permit ICT is available, but we have to get into all the details to see if he's qualified for the company or not at the moment. The next question, talking about the reduction of employees in IRCC. Ooh, it created a lot of buzz when this news came out. I think it was a month ago, if I'm not mistaken, in the new year. So the reduction, just to be clear, is going to happen in different phases and in the next 3 years. So 3,000 employees are not going to be eliminated all of a sudden this year. And that's number one. Number two, the plan is to implement technology and AI that IRCC has already been using, instead of the employees. So the reduction of the employees, but the introduction or emphasis more on the AI and the technology. Now, it's going around in immigration world and between immigration practitioners. AI is bringing a lot of complications. Yes, it fast tracks the processing. Yes, it might eliminate the long, processing times, but at the same time brings a lot of complications to the processes. We're seeing a lot of concerns on visa applications, work permit applications from outside of Canada, where the AI system processes based on the data that they've collected. Obviously, we all know how AI works. And many times, and you'd be surprised to know how many times, these are not compatible with the requirements of the applicant or with the documentation that the applicant has submitted to IRCC. So in a case where the applicant, for example, had and I'll make a very simple example. Police certificate, AI hasn't detected it, and so came out with a refusal letter based on the police certificate that was not on the application. What will happen in this case? The applicant, obviously furious, hires a lawyer, goes for judicial review in a federal court to dismiss the case, right? Because clearly there was a police certificate on the file. What will happen though is that this whole backlog goes on the federal courts, right? On the federal government. And now federal courts are seeing a lengthy processes on, on their application process because all these nonsense refusals are coming to them. So there's it's a lot going on, and when I say it's a lot, that's just a tiny bit of it. So going back to this question, in decreasing 3,000 employees is going to have an impact unless AI gets more advanced as we go, and that's the expectation, to be honest. But I don't have any definite answer to this question. It's yet to be seen, like any other thing in immigration. The other question that talks about any legal prerogative that protects those who have been going through this insane SUV process from within Canada for 3 years in case a PR refusal happens for reasons unrelated to documentation issues. If the refusal happens for reasons unrelated to documentation issues, it's going to be only for 2 issues, either criminal background or medical inadmissibility. And both are quite serious when it comes to processing the PR applications. Again, there are many ways to tackle those, so I'm not sure in this specific case what Rodrigo is specifically talking about in particular. I'd be more than happy to take it outside of the event and talk about the details. If it's a criminal or medical inadmissibility, depending on what the case is, there's always an H&C process available, humanitarian and compassionate grounds process available for applicants inside Canada. Again, we have to look into the case. If there is a child involved, if the child is born in Canada, if the ties are pretty strong to Canada, if the spouse has has worked in Canada, if there are any relatives in Canada, there are so many factors involved. And so we would have to, number one, look into what is the reason for refusal. And number two, how can H&C come into play to help this specific scenario? The last question, if it's 40 months right now and much longer, can we expect with the 3,000 employees decrease? I don't know. The whole point of introducing caps and the whole point of restricting the number of letters of support to 10 only per designated company, designated organizations, was stemmed from the fact that it was a long processing time, and IRCC was trying to reduce this many months of staying in the queue. Has it really affected the processing time since the introduction of restrictions? No, it actually grew longer. It used to be 36 months, now it's 40 months. Is it going to be affecting? We're looking at it in a long window, in a long period of time. Is it going to affect? We're hoping that with less application intake, IRCC has more time to process the applications that are still in the queue. So again, I would love to have a very definite answer to many other questions, but when it comes to immigration, like I said, very fluctuating and so unpredictable at this time.
That's true, Sonia. I've been dealing with some situations related to business expansion here. Regarding the question that Rodrigo said, I just want to add one thing. If you are planning to come via startup visa to Canada, there is a logic approach that you need to show not only the documentation and everything that you have in the requirement, but also how your business is evolving during these 3 years. And this is one point that can have a refusal. And I've seen from other specialists, they share some of the stories that with the companies just waiting to come with the PR to start the business here, waiting like paralyzed for 3 years, that doesn't make any sense because the business is dead, right? The business has to evolve, build the connections, create partnerships, have revenue for sure in 3 years, at least some revenue, build the social capital, social media connections, community. And this is something that you have to showcase during the process. So we do the companies I advise related to the business approach, we do reports every month, what's happening, what have evolved. So in 1 year, you have like 12 reports that you can showcase to the IRCC and show what really is happening. So if it's a real business, genuine approach coming to Canada in 3 years will happen lots of evolutions, right? And I think that is one of the cases that IRCC is concerned, is that it's not only the documentation itself, but also is the business genuine and coming to make the difference here. So in 3 years should have some results to showcase. And I think that would be a heads up for the companies that are coming and really planning to expand, to prepare and start doing business before even receive the PR.
That's
That is
absolutely right.
that's great information, honestly. I wasn't aware of that, for example, that it's really great information in terms of once you get it, you hit the ground running, but proving that you have the prospect to grow, and that's a differential between you and the other companies you're applying, right? So
Absolutely.
Exactly. So we are in the end of our conversation. Just first of all, I want to thank again Sonia for the partnership, BCCC team for putting this together for us, and Paola for coming here as our first guest, giving so many insights and sharing her experience. It was very valuable for us. Thank you very much. And on behalf of BCCC, I want to thank our sponsors, partners, members, and the audience that for taking the time to be here with us. On February 20th, just a reminder, we'll host the webinar Mining the Future, Sustainability, Progress, and Inclusion in 2025 and Beyond, where we'll kick off the events from PDAC 2025. Make sure to follow us online and to review membership and sponsorship opportunities to be part of our network. Khalil sent in the chat some information that you can download about the membership and sponsorship opportunities to create your social capital here in Canada. Why not? Like Ola was saying. And thank you for joining us today, and count on BCCC to expand your network in Brazil and in Canada.
Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, Paola. Thanks, Raquel.
thank you so much for the invitation, honored, and thanks so much to BCCC for creating this opportunity for all of us. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone.
Bye. See you later.